Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Apt Wealth's regular event series. Today we're talking about one of our favourite topics, retirement. Welcome to any existing Apt Wealth clients. You'll have heard a lot of this before through your advisor and over the years, but it doesn't hurt to refresh. And welcome to new family and friends of the Apt community. I'm Andrew Dunbar, a director of Apt Wealth Partners. I've been helping people plan and live their best retirement for 20 years, and I'm looking forward to sharing this session with you. Just a bit of housekeeping. We've got plenty of time for questions today. I'd love to get to as many of those as I can. If you can use the Q&A box in your Zoom menu, I will try my best to address those. We will record this session and send it out afterwards so that you can view it or share it with family and friends. And I'm also going to run a poll during this session just to get a sense of the room. It's completely anonymous, so I'd love you to fill that in a few minutes when we get to it. All right, quick disclaimer. The information today is general in nature. It doesn't take into account your personal circumstances, and you should always seek personal advice. But we're here to talk about retirement, and retirement is a topic that we love to talk about at Apt Wealth Partners. We love planning for it and we love living it with our clients. And if you're like me, you used a dictionary once in your life to look up the meaning of words. And the generations after me used Google or Wikipedia, and the latest generations use ChatGPT or the latest AI tool. But I looked up the dictionary for the meaning of the word retirement, and this is what it said. The act of leaving your job and stopping work, usually because you are old. Wow. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to challenge that definition. That's not modern retirement. The current stats say that a 65-year-old couple, there's a 50% chance of one of them living into their late 90s. So whilst we might not be doing jumping jacks and flying around the world at that time, there's a good chance we could be doing that in our 80s, and that's a lot of life to live. So this is our favourite quote at Apt Wealth, which is, at your end, you'll regret the things you didn't do instead of the things that you did. And retirement is a time that everyone looks forward to, a time of new beginnings, new successes, new experiences, and the opportunity to create a legacy. But unfortunately, it's one of those times that's not well planned for, and this means that many people don't end up living their ultimate retirement lifestyle when there's no reason that they shouldn't have. So with that in mind, we want to help you take the first steps today to planning that ultimate retirement. And so we're going to have a look at how much you need to retire. What does retirement look like to you individually? We're going to talk about investments and superannuation, which are two really key parts of that puzzle. We'll also chat about making the financial and emotional lifestyle transition into retirement, and then the options to select the right partner for you. Now, this is a stat that I find incredible, which is 1 in 5 Australians think about retirement daily. It's incredible. But, we do get it. All of these things on this page, there's a lot to think about. And chances are you're thinking about similar things like this. And the good news is that you're not alone, and that proper planning can alleviate a lot of the anxiety around these issues. Now, the biggest question on people's mind typically is, how much do I need to retire? So for the average couple in Australia to retire, what is that number? Is it 300,000? Is it 500,000? Is it 750,000? Is it $1 million? Or is it more than that? And this is where I'd like to just take a quick poll of the room just to get a sense of how everyone feels about that. What do you think the average couple needs for a comfortable retirement these days? So I'll put this poll up on screen. Just give everyone a couple of seconds to fill that in. Again, it's totally anonymous, but just helps me get a sense, and then we'll have a chat about it. I can see some responses coming through. That's great. Okay, interesting, fantastic. All right, I'll end that poll there. So the results are quite varied, which is interesting and perfectly normal. We've got a couple of responses right down the lower end, and then a majority of answers around the 750, a million, or even more. And it's interesting what the official studies about this say. So the Australian Association of Superannuation Funds and the Bureau of Statistics, they conduct this survey every quarter to see what it costs to retire for a single and a couple. And for a single, they say $595,000 is needed. For a couple, $690,000. Now, I don't know about you, but with that amount of life still ahead of you, to live a comfortable retirement, and keeping in mind a comfortable retirement, they assess as having a good car, good clothes, electronic equipment, eating out, traveling domestically, and even occasionally overseas. To do that with 690,000 for possibly up to 30 years, maybe even longer with medical technology, can you really have peace of mind and be comfortable on that amount? And the answer really for everyone is different to that question. Your number, how much you need, of course, depends on what sort of lifestyle you individually want to live. And it looks different for everyone, because some people want to just get out of the workforce completely, never work another day. For others, they want to transition out of work, maybe still bring in a bit of income to support them. The family home is a big variable. Some people want to downsize, some people want to stay in the family home as long as they possibly can. That all impacts the amount that we need. Cars, some couples like to have one car, some couples like to have two cars, some want to drive a luxury Mercedes, some want to drive a Toyota Corolla. So, again, that's something that impacts how much we need. Travel is a big one. Do you want to travel around Australia in the caravan? Do you want to take the odd cruise? Or do you want to fly business class around the world every year? And family goals as well. How do you want to help your kids? Do you want to help them buy their first homes? Do you want to help grandkids with education? All of these things go into the pot to help determine what your number is. I even had a client a couple of years ago tell me they wanted to be on the first commercial flight to Mars. So it's different for everyone, and that will determine how much we need to live the lifestyle that we want. This is what the study says, though. So for a modest lifestyle, which is all the basics, a single person needs $32,000 a year, and a couple needs $47,000 a year. And coincidentally, that's roughly the amount that the age pension pays. So if that's you, well, you might not need much of your own resources to make that happen. For most people, though, they're aiming for a comfortable lifestyle. The official studies at the moment say that it costs a single person $51,000 a year and a couple $73,000 a year. But we've got clients that want $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year, depending on their own lifestyle objectives. So the key is really working out what your number is, and we've got lots of tools and resources to be able to help you do that. No matter what your number is, there is common traits that we see in our clients, and there's really two types of clients that we see in retirement. So when you retire, you've got a certain amount of money, you're investing that money over time, it's going to fluctuate, but what it does do, it produces an amount of income every year. And for the first type of person or couple, it's represented in the blue here. That amount of income that's being generated is enough for them to do all the things that they want to do in their retirement. So they are leaving their capital basically untouched and just living off the income. And so the capital more or less will stay preserved over time. Now, when those people are coming in to see us every few months to catch up and see how things are going, The conversation flows like, oh, let us tell you about our latest overseas trip. This is what our kids and grandkids are doing and how we're helping them. These are some of the charities that we want to try and support. You can tell that they're just at ease with their money. It's not keeping them awake at night. They've got peace of mind and just living how they want to live, which is great. The second type of person, though, that amount of income that's being produced each year is not enough for them to do all the things that they want to do. And so they are taking a little bit of their capital every year, as represented in the red here, to supplement their income and do what they want to do. Now, that's fine. That's actually how the system was designed. It's why we save all of our life to be able to spend our money in retirement, spend the kids' inheritance, as they say. But the psychology of it is completely different. So when these people come in to see us, the conversations are much more around, do you think we could afford to take a trip next year? You know, our kids are really struggling. We'd really like to help them. Do you think we could do that in some way? What's happening with our investments? You can tell that money's playing a lot more on their mind. They don't have peace of mind. It's causing them anxiety and stress and not allowing them to live how they want to live. Okay, so it should be our mission to be able to have that peace of mind, whatever of those buckets that we're in, and that is definitely possible. So when we're working together with clients, there are things that we are absolutely doing with them to make their lifestyle a reality. And yes, we maximize superannuation, and we'll talk about that. We are wanting to minimize tax and keep every dollar possible in their pocket. We want to access government benefits wherever that's possible. We know that market downturns will be a reality throughout retirement, so we've got to protect people from those. And really, we've got to make sure that people have confidence that their income is going to last a lifetime. And if we don't have that confidence, then we need to have some honest conversations. But all of those items are really just designed to achieve two things, which is to give people peace of mind and allow them to live the lifestyle that they desire. And really, if you've got your health, which unfortunately I can't control, then those two things will pretty much be able to deliver everything else in your life. So that's really your aim in planning for retirement. And once you've worked out your number, once you know what you need to live the lifestyle that you want, it's then about, okay, well, where is this money going to come from? And there's a range of options, and they're all important in their own way. So the age pension, if and when you can get it, superannuation, your savings, and your investments. And we're going to talk about a few of these in more detail today. So firstly, investments. This is a key part of getting your retirement planning right. And so we'll have a good look at this. Now, first thing is, we know market downturns are going to be a reality throughout retirement. In fact, they're a reality every single year. It's just that some years are more severe than others. So we need to be set up to protect ourselves from those. It's 15 years, well, it's more than 15 years since the global financial crisis. And I can say with absolute confidence that something like that will happen again during most people's retirement lives. We just don't know when. Okay, so what we're looking at in this chart is a really good example to highlight this. The grey bars are the annual return on the share market each year. So if you invested from the 1st of January through to the 31st of December, what was your return in that year? And you can see on average, it's a positive year most years, and quite a healthy positive. In the odd year, it is a negative return. But then in the red dots represent the biggest decline during that year on the share market. And you can see every year there's a reasonably significant downturn in the market. So it's just a reality. We know that that's going to happen every year, even in a good year. So we've got to be prepared and protect ourselves to survive those downturns. And really, there's a fundamental principle that we have employed with our clients over time to be able to do that. And I want to show you the two approaches that people take with their investments or superannuation to bring this to life. So in the middle there, that represents a typical superannuation fund, an employer superannuation fund that lots of people would have, like a balance fund or a growth fund. And part of that, they would have some Australian shares, they'd have some international shares, they'd have some properties, some fixed interest, some cash, etc. But it's all pulled up into one. Okay, you can't see those individual investments inside the account. And that's fine. But once people get to retirement, they now need to live off this money. And so what you're actually doing in this setup is redeeming your units in that fund every month. And we'll have a look at an example of this in a minute and why it's so important. Now, the other approach is where your investments are still very similar, but it's represented around the outside of that pie chart. So you have those direct shares, you have Australian shares, international shares, you still have property, cash, fixed interest, very similar investments, but now they're your own direct investments. You can see them and understand them. So number one, it gives you far more peace of mind in your investments. But two, when you retire and you start drawing down on these to fund your lifestyle, the difference between the two setups is dramatic. And what we did is model out the global financial crisis 2.0. And we used Max and Jane as an example. And in this example, the share market dropped by half and then took 5 years to recover back to its original value. And Max, on the first hand, he had that balance fund, typical balanced or growth fund, where it's a unitized structure for his investments. They're both drawing down $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year on $1 million starting value, okay, which is reasonably high but not unrealistic. So what Max is doing every month to get his $6,000 is selling units in his fund. Now, let's say each of his units was worth $1. Well, he would be selling 6,000 units to get his $6,000 each month. But if that global financial crisis 2.0 happened and the market dropped by 50%, that unit price has gone from $1 to say 50 cents. And so now he needs to sell 12,000 units each month to get his $6,000. And by the time the market recovers, he's sold down so many of his units that he doesn't recover his money. And you can see there at the end of that 6 years, his value's gone down to 375,000. Contrast that to Jane, very similar investments, but she's got her own investments that she's got total control of. All of her interest and dividends are going into the cash account, and only from the cash account does she take her $6,000 a month. So she's not having to touch any of her investments, any of her shares. She can leave them to recover in value. And because of that, as the market recovers, she gets the benefit of that, and her balance at the end of the 6 years is $838,000. So $463,000 different just by having that simple structural difference in the investments. So really important, something that we've found has protected people over a long period of time. Right, another important strategy is superannuation, and it really is one of the last free lunches in Australia. It's such a fantastic structure to hold your investments, so we'll talk about that for a bit. Why is it so good as an investment structure? Number one, reduces your income tax while you're contributing to super during your working life, and we'll have a look at that. It has tax-effective earnings, both during your working life and during retirement. It's for savings for retirement. And this is interesting because I often get a lot of 30 or 40-year-olds coming to us and saying, well, why should I put money in superannuation? I can't access it for so long. You know, that's tomorrow's problem. Well, that's wrong in my eyes, because by saving for tomorrow, by knowing that the future is looked after, that's actually what is the enabler of lifestyle today. I can live freely, I can spend what I want to spend, do what I want to do, knowing that tomorrow is looked after. So, I dispute that approach and encourage people to think about it actually as an enabler of your lifestyle today. It is an effective estate planning tool, and we're going to have a good look at that too. And tax-free retirement income. You can't get better than that. So once you retire after age 60, everything it earns is tax-free. Everything you take out is tax-free. Doesn't get better than that. So let's have a quick look at how we put money into superannuation. And again, if there's any questions that pop up as we're going through this, just pop them in the Q&A box and we'll get to as many of those as we can. So the first way to get money into superannuation is before tax, which is known as concessional contributions. This is money that goes in through your employer, money your salary sacrifice, or other tax-deductible contributions you make. Now, there's a limit of $30,000 a year this current year. The other way is just after-tax dollars, money that you have in the bank account that you want to put into superannuation, and it's a bit more generous here. So these are called non-concessional contributions, and you can put in up to $120,000 per year, or you can even bring forward 3 years into one and do $360,000. So there is an ability to get quite a bit of money into superannuation using those limits. When we're contributing to superannuation, there's a real tax advantage, as I talked about. So this is the tax advantage on all the different current tax brackets. So let's just say somewhere in the middle, if you were earning $100,000 a year, if you were taking that as salary, you would be being taxed at 32% plus Medicare levy. So you're paying 32 cents in the dollar as tax. But if you contribute that to superannuation, a salary sacrifice, you would only pay 15% tax, which is a 17 cents in the dollar benefit to you. And you can see as your income rises, that benefit increases until you get to $250,000. And at that time, the government imposes an extra 15% tax on your contributions to make the system fairer, but it's still an advantage. Then the two phases of superannuation, and these often get confused, but they're really important. So accumulation is when we're working and contributing to our superannuation, and every dollar that the fund earns is taxed at 15%, which is still very generous compared to our own personal marginal tax rates. But then the real power starts when we meet a condition of release, which is typically retiring after age 60 or reaching age 65. At that stage, you can start what's called pension mode and commence an account-based pension. And that's when every dollar that you earn is completely tax-free. Every dollar you take out is tax-free. Now, to compensate for that, the government puts a minimum amount that you must withdraw from the pension phase so that people aren't just building up unlimited amounts in a tax-free environment. And you can see there that as you get older, that amount increases. Now, you don't have to spend that money, but the government's forcing you to take that out of the tax-free environment over time. So that's how they work. Very important. And once you retire, pretty much every time it's going to be in your interest to start that pension phase. Let's talk about some other great strategies, lesser known ways to build up your superannuation for retirement. One is called the catch-up concessional contribution rule. And this is where if your balance is under 500,000, the government will let you bring forward previous years of unused caps to do in that particular year. And this can be really useful. It can be useful for, and the whole purpose for bringing it in was primary carers at home that might have taken extended periods out of the workforce. They've missed out on super contributions over those years. They can try and catch up. or self-employed people who haven't been paying themselves super, they can catch up towards the end. But it's also very useful for people who might have a high income in one particular year before they retire, or they might sell an investment property and have a capital gain that they're going to pay tax on in that year. If we can make use of this is fantastic. So I'll quickly describe this graph, how it works. If we go back to the start in financial year 2021, the limit for concessional contributions was 25,000. Let's say you only put 15,000 in that year. Well, in the yellow, that unused $10,000, that could be carried forward to the next year. And in financial year 22, you would have had your normal cap, which in that year was $27,500, plus that unused $10,000. If you didn't make any contribution that year, you could carry all that forward to the next year, and you'd have your $27,000 for that year, plus the $37,500 unused, and so on. And so in this example, this year, this person could make a contribution of $97,500 and claim a tax deduction for that, which might help offset some of their other tax. So quite useful. Every little opportunity adds up. So the government co-contribution, if you earn less than $60,400, you make a contribution up to $1,000, the government will match it up to 50%. The spouse tax offset, if you have a low-income earning spouse or a non-income earning spouse, you can contribute to their superannuation up to $3,000, and you'll get a tax offset on your tax of $540. So not huge in isolation, but if you do those over a number of years leading into retirement, this is thousands of extra dollars that you've got for nothing. Now, getting a lot of media, very, very popular, is the downsizer contribution rules, and they are quite generous. So if you sell your home after reaching age 55, and there's a bunch of conditions around that that we can go through separately, you are able to put $300,000 per person into superannuation tax-free. And that's even if you're already above the cap of $1.9 million. That's normally the maximum. Once you're at that, you're not allowed to put any other non-concessional contributions into super, but the downsizer is excluded from that. So this is pretty powerful. If a couple was to sell their family home, they could put $600,000 into superannuation, and it wouldn't count towards any of those contribution caps. So that's very useful. Now, we talked about super being an effective estate planning tool, and it really is, but you have to be aware of the pitfalls. And a binding death benefit nomination is really important. So a lot of people think, oh, I've done my will, I've got my beneficiaries in there, so everything will be fine. My superannuation, it'll go to my beneficiaries. But that is not the case. Superannuation is not automatically an estate asset, and you need to nominate with the trustee of the superannuation fund where you want the money to go in the event of your death. And a binding nomination binds the trustee of the fund to pay it where you've told them to. If you don't do that, then you're basically leaving it up to the trustee of the superannuation fund, and your intended beneficiaries have to try and fight the fund as to why they should get that money. So make sure you've got the binding death benefit nomination in place. The other little known thing, in Australia, we don't have death taxes, right? Well, by stealth, we actually do. So superannuation, when it's inherited by non-dependents like adult children, it attracts tax of up to 17%. So if you had $1 million in superannuation, for argument's sake, well, that could be up to $170,000 of tax that your adult kids might need to pay. Now, there's something called a recontribution strategy, which we can do to help reduce or eliminate this tax. and it's something that you should speak to your advisor about. Not everyone can do it, and there's a whole bunch of rules around it, but if you can, it works really well. So we'll just have a quick look at an example of how that works here. So we've got Tom and Jane, who are 63 years old, just retired. Jane has $720,000 in her superannuation, which was all put in over the years by her employer. And Tom has no superannuation at all. Okay, now in this event, once Jane and Tom pass away, Jane's kids, who are her beneficiaries, would pay 17% tax on the remaining funds, which on that balance is $122,400. So that's quite a bit. So what we can do is this recontribution strategy. Jane, being retired, she's met a condition of release. It means she can take out her whole superannuation balance completely tax-free. Then the next day, because Jane and Tom are both under 75, they can use that 3 years in one contribution limit that we talked about and put $360,000 each back into superannuation. And because that's coming from their bank account as tax-free money, it goes in as tax-free money and it's classed differently. And beneficiaries don't have to pay tax on that money. So the adult kids would then avoid that 17% tax. Now, there's a whole bunch of rules around it. A lot of care needs to be taken if you do this, and not everyone is eligible to do it. But if you can do it, it's definitely worth considering. Again, if you've got any questions, just put those into the Q&A box and we'll try and get to those shortly. Just want to spend a minute talking about the Division 296 tax. This is the extra 15% tax that the government is proposing on the proportion of balances above $3 million. Now, it hasn't been legislated yet. It was looking extremely unlikely before the next election. At the moment, the government is trying to rush it through Parliament, so we'll see where that lands over the next couple of months. But regardless, you're not going to need to take any action before June 2026, so we've got a bit of time, and we've been doing a whole bunch of planning internally around this, and if it does get passed as law, we'll have strategies to be able to handle this, which we'll discuss with people at that time. So no action really to take at the moment on that, and we'll see what happens. All right, so we've discussed a lot about the financial planning for retirement. One of the most important parts that takes just as much planning is the emotional and lifestyle transition into retirement. And this is where we see a lot of people really struggle. Particularly in that first 6 to 12 months, it's a big adjustment, and people really struggle with it. So what are you going to do? How do you want to live your life? What do you want your legacy to be? You can't just play golf 365 days of the year. It really takes planning and purpose to try and work this out. Now, everyone's different, so there's not a one size fits all, can't give you the solution. But we've helped thousands of families through this, and we can draw on those experiences. We've got a range of tools and resources, and you can speak to your advisor about how you might do that. When we leave the workforce, we do lose a lot of things, and as I say, often it's not well planned for. So the social connection, we're social beings. Despite our best efforts to stay in touch with work colleagues and friends, often that doesn't happen. How are we going to replace that social connection that we need? The sense of accomplishment each day, purpose and direction. There's so many studies linking purpose with a happy, fulfilled life. How are we going to get purpose back into our days? Are there social causes we want to be a part of? Is it supporting the family and being there, helping raise grandkids and so forth? That's going to give us that purpose and energy to jump out of bed every day. The time, structure, and routine. This is something that people really struggle with. When we're at work, we've got a routine. When we don't, it's very unstructured. How do we get some routine back into our day and enjoy the downtime that we have, but be purposeful in the rest of our time? So again, there's not a one size fits all, but we've got a range of tools and resources from helping families over a long period of time to do this. And this is something that I personally really love. There's a book by the Australian palliative care nurse Bronnie Ware, The Top 5 Regrets of Dying. And many of you may have read this, where she interviews those who were on their deathbed about their top regrets in life. And these are it. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I'd let myself be happier. And I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. You know, there's nothing there about, I wish I had more money. I wish I'd saved more. And, you know, this just goes to that whole emotional lifestyle transition into retirement. If we don't plan for it, you know, it's a long time that we've got ahead of us. New beginnings, like I said at the outset, new successes, and what we want our legacy to be. And, you know, she puts it, life's a choice. It's your life, your individual life. Choose happiness. How do you want to live your life? What do you want your legacy to be? Let's put that into practice. All right. So once you retire, you've got options. You can try and do it all on your own, or you can partner with experienced experts. And at Apt, like I say, we've been helping families do this for decades. Our team of 85 people, we've got specialists in all the different areas. So your advisor's job is really to understand you, to know your values, to know what's important to you, to know how you want to live your life, what you want your legacy to be. And then they draw on the experts around them to help you do that. We've got experts. We've got an expert investment team that look after our portfolios for clients. We've got experts in estate planning, in aged care. All these experts come to the fore to help us deliver this peace of mind so that people can live the lifestyle that they want. So if you're looking for a partner, get in touch with Apt Wealth Partners. And what we do, really, it's all about helping you live the lifestyle that you want, giving you peace of mind to do that. And we do that by helping you understand your investments. If you don't understand your investments, that's one of the first steps, to just try and understand them. That'll help give you peace of mind, maximising retirement income, maximising government benefits, and surviving market downturns. And then making both the financial and emotional transition into retirement. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's session, and we've got a bit of time for these questions that have popped up. So let me just grab the Q&A box. Please feel free to type any questions you've got in there while I'm answering them. So let's have a look. I've got a question here. Do I need a self-managed super fund to hold investments you described? Good question. No, you don't need a self-managed super fund to do that. Most or many superannuation funds, regular superannuation funds, will let you hold your own investments, your own shares, your own term deposits, your own cash accounts and other investments there. So a self-managed super fund can be one of those vehicles that you might want to use, and it can make sense for people. We have a lot of clients with a self-managed superannuation fund, but equally, we've got as many or more that don't have that, but still have a similar investment setup. Another question here: how could I eliminate the superannuation beneficiary tax as a person with over $500,000 in my super? Okay, good question. So remember, when we went through that example, it's about reducing or potentially eliminating that tax. So if you had over $500,000 in your superannuation as a single person, we could do that $360,000 recontribution strategy that we described, that would mean you couldn't contribute then for the next 2 years. But after that, we could potentially do it again, and that might be a way to be able to eliminate the tax over a multi-year period. So reducing is the first step. Possibly we can't eliminate it, or maybe we can eliminate it over a longer period of time. I have an allocation to shares, but I don't think I own my own shares. Is it possible to own your own shares in super? So yes, good question. It is possible to own your own shares in superannuation, like I've described. A lot of funds will just have that allocation to Australian shares or international shares, and you don't see what those underlying shares are. But many funds now just allow you to own your own portfolio of shares where you can see exactly what you own. And that really helps you have peace of mind, and it helps in protecting you from downturns, as we described. All right, I've got another question. Does a recontribution strategy make sense for everyone? No, it doesn't make sense for everyone. So there could be a range of good reasons why you wouldn't do a recontribution strategy or can't do a recontribution strategy, but the question is certainly worth asking. I've got another question here. Upon reaching age 60, can I sell my units shares in the business, access my self-managed fund as a pension, and then consult back to the business on a part-time basis and continue earning? Okay, you've got to be very careful when you do this, because the tax office can come and look at you and apply the Part 4A tax avoidance measures to you. So the first part of that question, if you sold your business and weren't working, you satisfy the rules to access your superannuation. There's a technical rule where you need to finish a job after the age of 60 to be able to get access to your superannuation. Now, if it was planned and you knew that you were going to be going back into that same job, I don't think that would fly in the eyes of the tax office. But if you retired or left a job, a few weeks later, a couple of months later, you got an offer to go back to work and you decided, yes, I do want to go back, even if it was the same job, I think that you could argue that would be fine, and you haven't done this to avoid tax. So hopefully that answers your question. Looks like that's all the questions we've got for the moment. So I will say thank you for joining us today. We'll send out a recording of the event afterwards. If you've got friends or family that you think would benefit from it, feel free to pass it on. If you have any other questions, you can get in touch with us there at our website or email address. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to our next event. Thank you.